Hey there, Dr. Marc here, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to set up a weight loss plan for a nutrition client, but not by just telling you, but by actually showing you. This is how my nutrition client Jen dropped 50 pounds going from this to this over the course of over 14 months while working with me. Today we'll go over everything you need to start, to coach, and to massively transform weight loss clients. Here's my promise: if you follow the format that I lay out today, you'll learn how to generate crazy results for your nutrition clients. Let's dive in. So there's three main phases here. There's the assessment and startup phase. We also have the coaching and adherence phase, and we have graduation and transition. In the assessment phase, we're trying to get a better sense of where the client is coming from, what they've done in the past, get some basic characteristics about them, and what may be holding them back now from reaching their goals. This is also we can create a plan that will help them lose weight. Here's what we know about Jen. I collected all of this information through a form when we started working together. So her original goal was to lose 30 pounds so she could start to see some of the health benefits. She's 47 years old, her height is 5'6", and her weight is 187 pounds. For exercise, she was doing 2 Zumba classes per week, as well as starting to work in 1 30-minute core workout per week. Here's what she said when she was asked to describe her nutritional habits. So she mentioned that we generally eat at home and don't eat out too often. Our meals consist of meat, a starch, a cooked vegetable, and a salad, and too often dessert. I'm also the snacker. My snacks are generally healthy, but probably too frequent and probably too much. Okay, so here's one thing I do like to point out to you guys as nutrition coaches. It's important at times to wear our coaching hat, but also important at times to wear our marketing hat. Here's a client that wants to lose weight, describing what she feels and what she thinks about her own nutrition. There are a bunch of other people that are also potential clients that feel this way. So it's important when we're collecting this information to take a look at it, review it, and wear our marketing hat so we can use these messages and the things that they're saying to attract more people like them. Because in this situation, it sounds like she knows exactly what she needs to do. So we just need to put a plan in place that helps her get there. So when I asked her, what do you feel like your current fitness and health plan is lacking? She said discipline, but also fitness and nutrition knowledge. And I love this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how ready are you for a lifestyle change? And she said 9. So we have a motivated client that's ready to rock. Let's put together a plan for her. We've collected some good information here. We know what she wants to accomplish, and we know a fair bit about her history. Next thing I want to do is collect some objective information about what she's eating. This will allow us to do an assessment around her current nutritional habits. So we got her tracking for 3 to 5 days with the intent to not change a thing. And here's what I found. Beginning of my time working with Jen and what I saw. So I got her to track her intake for 3 to 5 days, 5 days here, without ideally changing a thing. It's very typical for clients to, in this assessment period, do some changes because they know that they're being watched and they know what they need to do, so they start doing it. And that's what we saw here, but there's some other things that also stood out that were like, hey, here are the first couple of things that you need to change. The one of them being, if we look at our protein intake, we have the 3 macronutrients here: protein, carbohydrates, and fat measured in grams, their average calories, and also the average throughout the week. What gives us this cool little chart over the right-hand side. If you haven't checked out this sheet yet ever, so many people have downloaded it. Just drop the comment, let's do that, in the comments below, and I'll make sure it gets over to you. It's really, really helpful. It pumps out this report for you, which we do see. Her protein intake is right around the RDA, which is the recommended dietary allowance for macronutrients for protein, which is way too low for people. It's not supposed to be optimal. It's just supposed to be what you need to stay in nitrogen balance. So not optimal for anyone looking to recomp their body composition, improve their body composition, lose weight, do any sort of physical activity. It's just way too low. So it was the first thing that we addressed. Now, ideally, we get closer to a point where it doubles that, but that's not where we started her because that would be just way too much. In terms of energy intake, we look at the calories, average around 1650 over the course of the week, some definite highs and lows, which is very normal for most people. Having those highs and lows, that's what, these ups and downs is what leads to poor body composition in a lot of cases, because you know what you need to do. You do that some days, but it leads to overeating in different social situations. So that's one of the things that we wanted to address as well. But overall energy intake, maintenance calories for most individuals is between 30 to 35 kcals per kilogram of body weight. This says pound, I should say per kilogram. At 19.36, which she is showing here, she's nearly at a 30% deficit on paper. We're going to assume that there's some underreporting here, which is the case when someone starts tracking. It's very common for that to happen. But at the same time, if she continued to eat this way, we know she would lose weight. So we gotta kind of find that middle ground and that balance between those two things. So where would we start her off at? Some realistic numbers, somewhere in between, somewhere 90 to 95 grams of protein, bump that up by a serving, maybe bring the calories down ever so slightly. I unfortunately didn't have any repeated body weight measurements throughout this week. We're getting a sense of, getting used to using the sheet and tracking. I'm not sure she didn't actually measure them, but I never got them. So I'm just gonna weigh carefully and make the best guess that I have with the information in front of me, set a plan moving forward, and then adjust based on that. So these are some of the first things I saw from her actual assessment period. Again, this just gives us the best impression of where we should start, make guesses based on that, some educated, smart guesses, realistic guesses to start that initial plan, and then adjust based on that. So what I decided to start her on was this. For macro targets, we had 95 grams of protein and 190 grams of carbohydrates, 50 grams of fat, totaling just under 1,600 calories. Now keep in mind, as I mentioned in my assessment, there is probably some underreporting going on here. The calories that she's reporting eating are probably lower than what's actually going on. And that's okay, because it is going to get better as she continues to track. And we're just trying to use the tool of tracking to get where we're going, to build habits around what she's eating, and to control the things that matter the most in her weight loss plan. I also gave her a few action steps to hit these numbers right off the bat. So the first one had to do with protein sources. And what I told her was you'll probably have to switch up a few of your protein sources to leaner cuts of meat, swap in some egg whites for some of your egg consumption, because she had mentioned eating quite a few eggs, so she could hit her protein targets while controlling for the fat. But I also talked about consistency, because as you remember, some of those days during the assessment period had pretty wide ranges of calories, which is totally normal. But what I told her was that this won't be perfect off the bat. Once you get a hang of it, it will become a lot easier. Aim to track every day, good or bad, so we can become much more aware of what you're eating. I gave her some specific instructions on when to check in, and we were off to the races. And now we're entering the coaching phase of this process. And this is much more art than it is science. You need to apply what you know to working with people. How to keep their spirits high when they're not seeing immediate results, and how to motivate them towards making a positive change for themselves. And that's the job as a nutrition coach week in and week out, and this is what I started seeing with Jen. After the first month of working together, she was down nearly 9 pounds at the exact same food levels. No changes at all, and even though she hadn't tracked before, she wasn't having a hard time adjusting to the process. She had actually mentioned she even found the assessment process when we started working together helpful, and even mentioned at that point she started changing her food habits a little bit. What she did need though, and she mentioned this a bit, were some protein recommendations that were high in protein but lower in carbohydrates and fat. And what she found that was really helpful was to starting to plan things out ahead of time. The first week of the program, she went out for dinner with some friends that were running a marathon the next day, and they wanted to carb load. So she had a newfound awareness of this stuff and started to work it into her targets and plan ahead. So she now had a newfound awareness of this stuff and started to work it into her targets. By the third month of working together, her progress started to slow it down, so we made an adjustment, bringing her calories down closer to 1,500, but keeping her protein the same. And eventually we would start to work in some higher carb weekly refeeds to help her manage her hunger and energy levels. This brought her down into the 160s for nearly a 20-pound loss in the first 4 months working together. The one thing that Jen battled throughout this entire process was getting enough protein, but her motivation, it never wavered. She started working more lifting-based classes at her local gym, and listen to this, within 6 months she was already down 30 pounds. Now at this point we hadn't really taken a break from this process or a dieting break yet, but Jen wasn't feeling overly hungry and she was enjoying the process, so we forged ahead. Speeding up the timeline a little bit here, by the 7th month we were heading into the holiday season, so I started to ramp up her food levels and actually took away her refeed, just so she could enter the holiday season without any major cravings and more overall food to play with. By the new year, post-holidays, she was down nearly 40 pounds over 8 months. This was moving like clockwork, and as things continued to progress, I started to learn more and more about Jen's motivation. And here's what she said about this process. Just over a year ago, I started to recognize that I wasn't feeling as healthy as I would have liked, and I knew that I was out of shape and needed to lose weight. About the same time, my 10-year-old niece was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. From the moment she was diagnosed, her life changed forever, especially in the areas of diet and exercise. With my niece as my inspiration, I decided that I needed to take control of my own health and lifestyle and started to look at my options. And this is what she said about working with a coach. This plan has been so much more than a diet, as I have developed a much greater awareness of food and my own habits. I feel so much better and have more energy than I have had in years. The part about her niece is very interesting because in the Dr. Marc method, we call that her North Star. It's the thing that drives her actions and her habits when things are easy and even when things are hard. It's important to have and ask about as a coach. So by the 1 year mark, she was down nearly 50 pounds and started training for her first ever 5K race. And this is when she started to shift her weight loss goal to more of a performance-based goal. And this is when we enter our last phase, the transition phase. Now there are a couple notes about this period. Number one, clients can work with you forever. There are gonna be some clients that really enjoy accountability and guidance and even feel like they need it. And you don't necessarily need to kick them out just because they achieved their first goal. You can set new goals and continue to work with them. There's this industry myth that you should set people up for their entire lives with good habits so that they don't need you anymore. Some people may actually want to continue to work with you because they like the accountability, and that's totally fine, but others we're going to transition out. And we're going to do this with this second point here, which is starting to pull out some elements of control and prescription, which is going to make things more sustainable long term. So we shifted her goals and she was able to eat 200 to 300 calories more per day while focusing on performance goals like eventually running a 10K while maintaining her 50-pound weight loss. Ultimately, I would wrap up working with Jen, but I still do work with her time to time for a tune-up or when she has a new performance goal she wants to chase. The coolest thing about this process is helping someone lose weight, but watching how it impacts their entire life and turns into bigger things. What starts as weight loss tends to open some bigger doors, and this can be the launching pad for a lot of clients. This is one of my favorite client transformations, so I want to thank Jen for letting me share her story and the opportunity to share this educational experience. Now, as great as all those tips are, if you're really serious about starting a nutrition coaching business, the next thing I'll have you do is check out this video I've linked up right here. Today, we went over how to set up a nutrition plan for a weight loss client, but one thing I want to do and explore more is how to check in with that client. I'm going to show you the exact steps to do that right here, so check it out now, and I'll see you in the next video.